Interesting week of news from Broncos country, and I gotta say, it's definitely welcome. I mean, especially with us going into the combine. In fact, we got combine stuff going on as we speak. And of course, we'll be talking about that in the coming days. But as of right now, man, got some really exciting stuff to be talking about. In a way, this is a little bit of a catch up episode. But at the same time, it's A&J. We're back with some more Broncos talk, of course. And excuse me, needless to say, I feel like so many things have happened in this off season that just lead me to believe that the Broncos are absolutely going in the right direction, as if 14-3 weren't enough. I mean, yeah, we had the unfortunate mishap with A, the Bo Nix injury, and B, of course, losing in the championship game against the Patriots, which would have ultimately catapulted the Broncos into the Super Bowl. I mean, shit happens. What are you gonna do? And to be perfectly honest with you, better than us, as they just absolutely got their asses kicked by the Seahawks. Certainly love to see that. But anyway, yeah, a lot of incredible things. Of course, we talked about a week or so ago about the hiring of Doug Belk, and we, of course, retained not only Vance Joseph, but Davis Webb as the offensive coordinator. But now it's been revealed that Sean Payton has handed off play calling duties to Davis Webb. And I gotta say, this is something that I feel like we were all anticipating. We were hopeful, at least. I don't know that we were ever sure that it was gonna be the case. I guess it did seem as though Peyton was kind of leaning that direction with the whole thing about driving in the rain of sorts at night or whatever that was. And if nothing else, I gotta say, it just goes to show that you gotta really not only take Sean Payton at his word, but it moreover shows that he's serious about making this team better and better as best he can to the best of his ability, and the coaches are certainly going to have a hand in that, especially with the new hire that we'll talk about in a little bit. But I think that Peyton handing off the play calling duties is absolutely huge to Davis Webb. Certainly a really good offensive mind, a young offensive mind to say the very least. And maybe this was something that was a long time coming. I don't know. I'm not really sure if we go back to the 2024 season that I felt like there was such an issue with play calling. I mean, at that point, we were just looking to see what we were going to wind up getting from a Bo Nix. And to be perfectly honest with you, that short sample at that point was pretty damn good. I mean, I know there are a lot of doubters out there still, and they'll ultimately be silenced in time. But in that same vein, to me, this is absolutely a much needed change. I think it's definitely going to freshen things up for the offense, and I'm actually hyped right now. Along with whatever moves are made in free agency, along with the draft, I gotta say I've never been more confident as a Broncos fan through an earlier point in the offseason than I am right now. I mean, it's certainly been a long time. I don't know if I was necessarily quite this confident back in 2015 because, of course, obviously, we brought in some pretty big names on defense, namely T.J. Ward, Aqib Talib, and DeMarcus Ware, amongst others. And that served to be a group of very welcomed additions that did nothing but bear the most amazing fruit. Obviously, they won Super Bowl 50. And of course, it needed to be something that wound up being the case to where we rode the defense on that one because, let's face it, Peyton Manning just wound up really hitting that downside of his career. I mean, the performance and the production wasn't anywhere near the same, and more than anything else, I think it was obvious after he'd actually taking that big hit in that Buffalo game back in 2014, that what we were used to seeing from a Peyton Manning was pretty much a thing of the past. And we saw flashes of it at times, but it wasn't going to be anything like what it was before that point, which is really sad to say, and it was certainly sad to see. But he was still good enough to actually keep the ship steadied and was still able to at least have the Broncos in a good enough position to where they were good enough to win the Super Bowl. And again, that was largely the defense, but it wasn't a thing to where, he shit the bed or anything like that. He absolutely did everything that he could, and he did enough to where the Broncos were able to win it all. Now, this is a little bit different because we got a younger core of talent, a younger group, and certainly a younger quarterback in Bo Nix. I feel pretty confident that once he's back from the ankle injury, that he's going to be even stronger than ever. He's certainly going to have quite the chip on his shoulder, because I think in the back of his mind he realizes, this is something where if this injury doesn't happen, it's probably the Denver Broncos that are going into 2026 as the reigning defending Super Bowl champions. But obviously we'll never know. And even for as heartbreaking as the loss to the Patriots was, I gotta say it wasn't necessarily as bad when you consider the circumstances for what they are and were at the time. Now, moving forward, I feel pretty good about where this team is going to be going, and truth be told, if nothing else, I mean, to say that it can only go up from here is absolutely an incredible thing, and especially for the fact that that up just so happens to be the Super Bowl and probably even winning it. So for me, depending on, well, not even depending, but just with the moves that I am pretty confident are going to be made, and even if they're not necessarily the moves that I'm expecting, again, I'm trusting the coaching staff and, of course, the players themselves to absolutely be ready to go in July, August, going into September. And I feel like 2026 is going to be a really fun season. 2025 was one that at times probably drove us crazy, but it was enjoyable because it was easily the best season since 2015. And it's almost not even close. Of course, Bo's rookie year, where the Broncos actually won 10 games, was pretty good. But 14-3 is quite an accomplishment. Do they necessarily duplicate that? It's really hard to say. I mean, they could end up winning maybe 12, 13 games for that matter. And that's not necessarily going to be all that much of a drop-off, but I feel like there's definitely a lot to look forward to going into 2026. And with that said, we got to talk about the latest hire, and now we can say that the Broncos coaching staff is now complete with the hire of Robert Livingston, now former defensive coordinator for the Colorado Buffaloes with Coach Prime. And I feel like this is going to be a really good hire because he definitely did a really good job with the Buffaloes for the couple of years that he was out there. The only issue with the Buffaloes is that offensively, a lot was left to be desired, specifically with the offensive line, and it remains to be seen as to whether or not that offensive line is going to get any better. I guess only time will tell where that's concerned, but this hire specifically is something that I find myself to be looking pretty forward to. He's going to be the defensive passing game coordinator, and I don't think you can go wrong with this. He was with the Cincinnati Bengals in the earlier years with Joe Burrow, and of course they were responsible for being the one team that actually knocked the Chiefs out of the playoffs. Of course, Bucks and Eagles notwithstanding, but they actually came through with a game plan that beat Patrick Mahomes in the AFC Championship game back in 2020 and I guess you could say 2021. But either way, went to the Super Bowl, faced the Rams, and we're probably a couple of plays or so away from actually winning it. So, with that being said, again, the defense is definitely in good hands, not only bringing back Vance Joseph, but the hiring of Doug Belk and now Robert Livingston, who I feel like this combination is going to prove to be every bit as potent as what we've had in recent years with the defensive coaching staff. And again, just what we're going to see from Peyton and Davis Webb, I think, is just going to be absolutely wonderful moving forward. And who knows, we may be grooming Davis Webb to be the heir apparent to Sean Payton if he doesn't take another job elsewhere. I guess we'll wind up seeing with time, but with everything as constructed right now, I feel like there's very good reason to be confident. And of course, with a really strong plan for free agency and the draft, like I said, we can only go up from here, and obviously the only up that we have is a Super Bowl, but who's to say that there's going to be that much of anything stopping us? Now, that's not to say that the rest of the league isn't going to be every bit as competitive, every bit as tough. That's absolutely going to be the case, and a lot of these other hirings that have taken place with other teams, they're going to be really interesting to watch, especially Buffalo with Joe Brady finally being at the helm, working with Josh Allen as their offensive coordinator. I feel like between them and Baltimore, that's really the only two things that are in the way at this point of the Broncos getting to and ultimately winning the Super Bowl, even regardless of who winds up coming out of the NFC. But obviously that's easy for me to say that now. Only time will tell, but again, it's hard to not be confident. I don't know. Let me know what y'all think down below. Are y'all as confident as I am? Are there things that y'all are concerned about? Let me know what y'all think. Of course, help me out with that algorithm and hit that like, share, and subscribe, especially if you enjoy the content. Definitely hit that notification bell so that you know when more vids are coming through. With that being said, this has been your time with A&J, and I thank you for spending it with me.